Spoken
I
language.
haven't thought about flying for a long time. I haven't dreamed at that moment when I was alone above the clouds for a long time. I haven't dreamed waking up in a room surrounded in blue and green grass more years than I could dream of remembering. I haven't walked back into the past or scratched on the doors of my origins, where it all came from, since I held up that cape for the last time.
Return to Cape Town 10th Year Anniversary Edition is a revised version of Andy N's first poetry book. The book can be purchased from Amazon and it contains numerous additional material.
Spoken language.
You wake up one morning after not reading a book since your school days and you decide to be a writer, with no good or bad writing to compare against your own. You just know how to write and anyone who tells you otherwise is wrong. Hell, maybe they're jealous of your natural ability to craft a masterpiece. After all, most people need to learn through a combination of books, courses, critical feedback and workshops. Not you though. It's not their fault they don't realise your natural talent, but they soon will.
How to Write Wrong is the new book by Amanda Steele. The book, which is an interactive story, gives the reader multiple options throughout its story. The book can be purchased from Amazon.
Spoken
Thank you
language.
today for tuning in to Spoken Label. Spoken Label was originally set up at the beginning of 2016 and as of recording has over 200 sessions in our archive. Although the podcast can be heard on Anchor, iTunes, Apple, Spotify, YouTube and literally 10 or 11 other networks, the full archive can be found at Spoken Label, all one word, spokenlabel.bandcamp.com. On Bandcamp, it is set as pay what you want, so you are entitled, if you wish, you can download it or stream it for nothing. But if you throw me a couple of pennies my way, it is always eternally grateful to help me maintain the operating costs and future running costs of this podcast. Enjoy.
Spoken language.
Hi guys, Andy N, Spoken Label, back in the house. I'm back on Zoom again today, and what I love about Spoken Label is referrals. A dear friend of mine and my partner Amanda's, Randy, has referred this gentleman over to me today. We're chatting to, and he's currently based over in Buxton, aren't you, Don? So, you want to tell everybody who you are and where you come from originally? I know you're not from Buxton originally, and where your creativity started. Let's take it from there.
Okay, thanks, Andy. I'm Don Dolby. I originate from Leicestershire. I was born in a little town called Melton Mowbray in Leicestershire. Family didn't stay there that long. The family moved down to London, West London, when I was about 7. So did all my growing up and lived a lot of my life around West London and then later in Buckinghamshire. Had our family in Buckinghamshire, in High Wycombe, came back up to Leicestershire about 2009 for a few years, and then 5 years ago moved to Buxton.
What drew you and your wife to Buxton then?
We'd always liked the area, like the Peak District. Also, we moved to a house in Shepshed just to keep a base in England because we had a house in France at the time that we spent a lot of time in. But we wanted something with a bit more character, and we liked Buxton as a town, so
yeah, it's nice.
We started looking around.
It's a lovely area. Not been there for a few years. I do like it on there a lot to do.
Yeah.
So, good choice, certainly. So.
But coincidentally, both of our sons are up this way as well now. So
are they? Oh, good.
For one reason or another, we've all moved up this way. I've got one son with granddaughters in Glossop and another one in New Mills.
Oh, that's not too bad. You've got them both trained well, then, haven't
you? Yes.
No, I can't blame you. Now, obviously, we're here to talk today about your writing, really. So you were telling me before you've been writing, haven't you, one way or another, nearly all your life. So, can you remember where your first poems originally came from?
I think it was probably the first poem that I've got on record that I can remember was written in about 1970, and that was basically written about Melton Mowbray as a nostalgia thing, when we left, for many years after that, I went back to grandparents and friends and that, but eventually you lose touch with your roots in that sense. So that was the first sort of inspiration to write about somewhere I remembered from when I was a kid.
Oh, cool. And obviously then, like, it's I know obviously you told me before you've been writing on and off, haven't you? So just life gets in the way, doesn't it? So, and have you found then over the last few years, as your writing got more, you had more time, have you, or was it more consistency?
Partly time. For the first 20 years or so of writing poems on and off, and as I said, I had a few years, spells of a few years where you don't write anything. But a lot of it, as I guess with a lot of poets, came from being able to write things down that you wouldn't necessarily say out loud. So that's perhaps a common theme, but that's where a lot of so a lot of it became sort of personal thoughts and quite sort of personal poems. But then events, writing about events and that, so on. But recently now I'm retired actually from work, so the last few years, so it gives you more time to think about things and write about things. But also I find the going to a regular group, poetry group or different sorts, that also gives you the stimulation to keep trying to write something new.
Yeah, it does to me as well. It's also do you think it's also the interaction with writers as well, isn't it? You're in an environment, aren't you, where you feel like it's, I must write something, but I want to go with it like that. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. It's and you pick up ideas from other people. I mean, you try and. I've never had any formal tuition in writing. I've just written what I feel.
That's the best way.
And I like it that way. Yeah, that's right. In fact, I've actually sort of actively shied away from going on creative writing courses for that reason, because I want, I'd rather it just be natural and what I feel at the time.
It's ironic. I actually did a degree in creative writing at a university I'm not going to name over 20 years ago. And I learned more from going to, I think, if I'm honest, going to writing groups, actually.
Right.
So it comes and goes, doesn't it, that way? So
yeah, that's right.
Now, you told me before, obviously, off mic, that the group in question, obviously, is Buxton Spoken Words. So that's the group you go to more most regular, isn't it? So tell us a bit about that night then, and how the atmosphere in that group for you goes.
Well, I've only been involved with it for about a year or so, but it's been running for many years. The person who was organising it wanted to take a back seat last year, so 2 or 3 of us got involved in keeping it going. We had to find a change of venue, but it basically meets in a local cafe or restaurant or pub, whatever suitable venue. Actually meets in Buxton on Tuesday nights once a month in normal times. I mean, it's as simple as that, really. It's we normally have it's normally around about a dozen poets, I guess. Poets and short story writers turn out. We follow what Julian, the originator of it, did, in that we only allow original work from people. But yeah, basically once a month for a couple of hours, you meet and get together and share your writings.
Yeah, that's my sort of night that times, because I just told you, me and Amanda, we go to about 4 a month, we do, and a couple of them are like that. Basically, it's nice that sort of night, because it's where you feel like you're among friends and a family, aren't you? A family atmosphere. So
that's right.
Do you feel like has your writing changed since you started going to this group, you think?
Possibly. I couldn't sort of say in which way it's changed, but I guess you kind of pick up ideas. I've always tried to write a variety of poems, because one of the things, first 20 years or so of writing, nobody ever read them except my wife, and she said, "Well, all your poems are a bit dark," she said. Well, I don't suppose that's unusual amongst poets, especially when you're trying to write things that you don't necessarily want to say out loud. So that actively made me think about trying to write something with a bit more humour in it. And another thing I've done, each where I have kept consistently writing, each year at Christmas, I've sent out a Christmas poem, if you like,
great idea.
card to friends and family and so on. And it always, or generally, is something, because I always like to write with a bit of politics and a bit of social comment in it as well. So although it's a Christmas theme, I've always had, incorporated some sort of social comment of what's going on at the time. Apart from when my granddaughters were born, and then I wrote about them just for a change.
Yeah, just to break it up a little bit. Yeah, definitely. So, yeah.
But one of the earliest ones was I wrote something about Rudolph not wanting to get out of bed for Santa because he was too lazy one year, and so on. So I deliberately tried to inject a bit of humour. So I'm not sure that always works. It's not the best thing. It's not the thing I'm best at, perhaps.
Well, they do say Christmas time is silly season, isn't it? So.
Yeah, that's right. But people seem to appreciate them anyway.
Oh, good. Now, you were telling me before as well, weren't you, that you self-published a book a few years ago as well, didn't you? So. Yes.
I'd had one or two poems published in local newspapers when I'd sent them in, and also I'd, in a couple of volumes, I think I'm not quite sure you'd actually call them vanity publishing, but it probably where there was a publishing house a few years ago that advertised for poets to send in their poems for publication. I'm not sure how much critical judgment went into publishing them. I think they were more interested in just you buying 2 or 3 copies of the book when it came out.
Yeah, I've got first 2 books I think that I'd published were in those sort of things myself, yeah. And
yeah,
I don't. Should we just move on?
Yeah. About 5 years ago, I'd been thinking about it for a few years, but for about 5 years ago, I finally got together a collection of various poems that I'd written, and decided to just pay for the printing of it myself, which I did. So my background is graphic design, typesetting. So,
is it? Oh, brilliant. Oh, yeah, you quit in then, aren't you?
Yeah. So I was able to do all the pre-press side of it myself, and then just sent it off and paid for 100 copies. So I just got 100 copies printing. It's not been commercially published. I just carry a few copies around with me should people be interested in buying.
Yeah. No, I'll get you completely with that. So, great stuff. Okay. I was going to ask you before then as well, a couple of quick questions to conclude with then. Obviously, what we haven't talked on before is about your actual style of writing. You've dropped little hints on it before, saying if people are interested in it, is there a sort of recurring themes that cause you to work along?
Well, maybe if when I did the book, I broke it up into chapters.
Mm-hmm.
So that would probably give you a flavour.
Yeah. Then you can read some out for us in the second half. So yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. There's a couple of that early day, but one chapter is called Reflections on Life. Another one, Love and Spirituality. So I like to sometimes write, whether you like to or not, whether I like to or not, sometimes poems just take on their own life. And so there's a couple of those sorts of things. I like writing about nature as well. That's another area. I'm about butterflies and birds and so on, and the beauty of nature. I've written some on music. I've written one on the anniversary of Elvis's death. I wrote about Clarence Clemens from the Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band when he died, and I also written about gigs and concerts that I've been to.
I remember doing one about Steve Earle, actually. Was it last time I saw you at Randy's night? Yeah.
Yes.
Right. I'll ask you to do that one second half, because that one I really liked.
Okay.
I do like Steve Earle myself, so cool.
And then the political and social comment. I'm happy to express my politics in my poems as well.
my thought philosophy indeed. So now, obviously, at the moment, I always ask writers to conclude on is I'd like to ask writers what plans that they have going forward for the work. But obviously, we're in lockdown still as of speaking, so it's very hard to judge, isn't it? So I know at the moment you're just going to various couple of Zoom nights at the moment, aren't you? And hopefully in a couple of months' time, you'll be able to get back to your Buxton group then, won't you? It's all been well.
Yes, one thing I have done with the Buxton group, because we can't meet at the moment, I haven't organised any Zoom evenings, but I have created a blog, where members of the group can contribute their own poetry. So
Great
that's
idea.
something we can develop in the future as well.
Yeah, great
Keep
idea.
going in the future.
No, good stuff. So definitely now. I did one thing we haven't covered as well is what's the name of your book?
Oh, right.
We've been talking about it for 5 minutes.
Yes, I actually had a title in mind, and I had to actually write a poem to fit the title of the book. And the book is called Can't See the Wood.
That's fine. Now, obviously, if people want to get hold of a copy of this publication, they're best doing it directly for yourself, then, aren't they? So,
yes, I also have a website with most of my poems sitting on as well. So,
okay, what's the website then, Don?
It's called www.elusiveillusion.co.uk.
That's fine. I'll get it sent across me later on. Brilliant.
Yes, and I've also created a blog for my own personal poems as well, which also links into the website, which has got more recent poems on it.
Great. What's the blog then?
The blog is Griffonier, G-R-I.
I'm going to get it sent that to me later. I'm just
all right, I'll do that. No, that's a name I made up, Le Griffonier, as a publishing name. As far as I know, it means the scribbler in French.
Brilliant. And can you send over to me as well the Buxton link as well, so people can look at that Buxton blog as well? Brilliant. Okay, well that's all my questions at the moment, Don. So I'll take a quick break, everybody. Hang around. When we come back, Don's going to do a couple of poems for us, Don. So are you okay with that?
Yep. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. Hang around and see you all in 2 minutes, guys. Okay. Take care.
Spoken, mate.
Hi, guys. Okie dokie. Now we're doing the bit of the podcast I always like doing, because I get time to shut up now and we let the writer, everyone hear how good the writer is. Don's brilliant. He really is. So over to you, Don, my friend.
Thank you, Andy. First poem I'd like to do is one from about 40 years ago. My dad had moved down to the New Forest, and I wrote it for him because he loved the forest so much. It's called November Forest Frost. The early morning forest glistened in its coat of white, shining frost, sparkling, quiet, hiding all its life. Fox, well-filled, stealthily seeks its warm den. Young rabbit scampers, skates, tumbles down a hole. Deer deep into the trees huddle together, seeking shelter while the dawn brings light. The sun shines in, still cold, but what magic it betrays. Webs of spiders, silken threads, moistened, brightened, jeweled in the rays of golden wonder coming from afar, to give the icy crust an illuminating glow, crowning the glory of the morn. Gaining warmth, the sun climbs high, slowly melting away the earth's white coat. Thus revealed are greens and browns, scattering the six-legged miracles of many hues, rushing, pushing, swarming over the ground. Teeming food for hedgehog, badger, abundantly abound. The day is short and dusk comes early, casting a misty grey cloak, descending low, hiding blackbirds roosting deep in the dense hedgerow. Darkness hastens, coldness grows. Forest prepares to don again its cloak of white.
That's beautiful. Really, really evocative there, Don, that one. I'll be honest with you, the very piece I wrote 20 years ago, I'd be embarrassed to read them out now, kind of how bad they were. But that stood up really well. Really beautiful piece, that one. So
some of them are like that.
Do you find when you're looking back at some of your early pieces, do you cringe at them sometimes, do you?
I don't think I actually cringe. I mean, some you realise could be better, and some you wonder what you're doing. Yes, but generally, I quite like most of what I've written.
Yeah, that's a lovely piece. I really enjoyed that. So, okay, moving straight on to number 2.
Okay, the next one is simply called "Can You," and it's one of those poems that even perhaps the poet doesn't realise what it's about.
Oh. Always one of those ones that sneaked up on you, then, nicely, is it?
Yes, words just came out. And
yeah, I do them as well.
Yeah, but I like those as well. Called "Can You." Can you hear what I can hear? Can you hear my laughter? Can you see what I can see? No, she said, disaster. Can you feel what I can feel? Can you feel my heartache? Can you see what I can see? No, she said, mistake. Can you fly as I can fly? Can you see my wings? Now can you see what I can see? Maybe, she said, some things. Can you think as I can think? Can you read my mind? Can you see what I can see? I'll try, she said, I'll try. Can you dream the dream I dream? Can you fly with me? Can you see what I can see? I think, she said, I see. Can you live where I can live? Can you find your man? Now you must see what I can see. Yes, she said, I can.
Oh, brilliant. No, you've got a great sense of rhythm in that piece as well. So, is that a much newer piece? That was it? Was a better piece from a while ago as well? That was
from about 20 years ago.
Yeah. So I love the rhythm and that. It's razor tight and excellent stuff. Really, really. What you done?
Well,
what I like what your words done, and I've heard this in the few times I've met you as well, is the fact there's no unnecessary words in your writing, and that's just plain simply good writing. So that was exceptional.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, your third piece, then, please.
Okay. Well, this is the one I wrote. I've always been a rock and blues, rock and roll fan, and one of my heroes, or one of my favourite artists, is Steve Earle. And I had a friend who was a big fan, and he'd never seen him on stage. We went to, and he was playing Hammersmith Odeon, so we had tickets to go. And unfortunately, my friend was ill. Couldn't go. So I wrote this poem for him after the gig, and I actually sent it to him, and he had it, and he put it in a frame along with his unused ticket.
Fantastic.
So it's called Reflections on Hammersmith. Steve and the Dukes were coming on strong, 20 minutes in and nothing but song. No monologues yet, no soliloquies long. But wait, now he's telling us right from wrong. He's against the chair and against the war. For electing Bush, couldn't apologise more. Did all we could to get votes out the door. Only thing left, revolution in store. He said, I hear Trevor's not in town. Holiday virus has struck him down. Tell him, Steve said, I'll be coming around. See him next time. We'll make a fine sound. The Dukes were rocking and they knew how. Come, Mr. Earle, and take a bow. Make your music and they will not cow. Spirits like yours. The revolution starts now.
Yay. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I would have been honoured, and I'd love that if I'd received that as well. So I can't blame your friend there for being really touched in that one. Has he actually seen Steve Earle yet? Then your friend, has he? Or?
Yes, we did actually a few years after that in his hometown. I think he lived in Hampshire in Basingstoke, and he played there. So we both went together to see him eventually.
Good. I think you do like it when you get to that sort of moment, and any music that's someone you've worshipped for a long time. I know I was like 3 or 4 bands I can name I saw for the first time. I stood down and cried my eyes out with 2 of them as a grown man. You do sometimes. There's something in it, isn't it?
Yes, it's the emotion of it, and that's why we love the music and the poems, and yeah, it's
yeah, perfect.
If it moves you, that's good.
Yeah, that's definitely the right way, of course. So yeah, okay, on to your 4th piece now, then, Don.
Okay, this is one from about 15 years ago when a little bit political, this one, but when the government was of the time was introducing more and more anti-terror laws and not imprisoning people, but putting people under house arrest for without going through the due court process. And it's based on the line of, well, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear. It's called Nothing. Don't be afraid if you've nothing to hide, nothing to fear if you're on the right side. Don't tell me that my protest is wrong, nothing to fear if I sing the right song. Unfurl your banner, just don't do it here. Nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear. Raise your voice, you have freedom to speak, but not if your words defend the poor and the weak. March to the door of democracy's pride, nothing to fear if you've nothing to hide. Grow a long beard, speak Irish for sure, have a dark skin, wear a turban or more. but if you've nothing to fear, if you've nothing to hide. Defend your rights, but you know the score. Stray just too close and you're pinned to the floor. Innocent, you claim. Prove it, they say. All of your rights they've taken away. Battles were fought by our forebears with pride. Freedoms have gone, but we have nothing to hide. Our government's shame with no sign of a tear. The terrorist's gain of all we hold dear. But if you've nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear.
Yeah, I like the repetition in that. Was that quite a difficult piece to write, that one, was it? Because all it's a repetition and the rhythm in it, so.
Yeah, I somebody asked me the other day about, we're talking about rewriting and going back and playing about with poems after you've written them. I've always tended to do a lot of thinking about the theme I want to write about. But once I actually start to put it on paper, it almost comes in one go.
Oh, that's good going, that.
And that's just, I rarely go back and rewrite.
Yeah. I'm the way around. Because I've just gone reissued my first book from 10 years ago. And I'd got to the 10-year anniversary and I thought, I'll reissue it. But then I'd look at it and I thought, oh, good grief. I thought, no, I can't have that. And I was just ended up being very sensitive on it, shall we say, right? Give it a new lick of paint thing. I think sometimes you need to, depending on yours and writer. For good stuff, anyhow. Okay, on to the grand finale now, Don.
Yes, well, this is a fairly personal poem, which I wrote last year on the anniversary of D-Day, or around the anniversary of D-Day, because my dad was a D-Day veteran. He went up the beaches on D-Day, and he died 30 odd years ago now, but obviously he came through the war, otherwise I wouldn't be here. But so this is a personal poem about his experience then. It's called 18 years, 10 months and 19 days. 18 years, 10 months and 19 days. My dad, on a bloody beach, bullets flying, shells crashing, comrades falling all around. My dad was 18 years, 10 months and 19 days old when he landed on sword, or maybe on gold. But still the bullets flew, and still his comrades fell, alongside this brave and frightened lad. I cannot imagine, I cannot comprehend the hell he must have seen, the blood, the bodies, the bits of flesh and pieces of brain. Their bravery meant it was not in vain. What were you doing when you were 18 years, 10 months and 19 days old? What was I doing when I was 18 years, 10 months and 19 days old? I know what I was not doing. I was not putting my life on the line to keep our country free. But my dad was, and he came back, fortunately for me. Like many, he did not say much, and I didn't ask enough while he was still here with me. He told some stories. He told of a spent bullet nestling in his tunic. He told of comrades falling to either side. But most of what he felt, most of what he saw, most of those horrors could never be told, and he was only 18 years, 10 months and 19 days old.
Perfect, man. I can well relate to that one, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Off mic, brilliant. Okay. Great way that done, because I think what you've done is you've given us some of your older pieces, but to finish off with a real up-to-date piece, a good way of bringing in things full circle. That was tremendous. Thank you for that. Really touched me that, did I? I don't say that often.
Well, I hope that's sort of given a bit of variety.
Yeah, it's perfect. So, right, hang around, Dean. Quite early off mic, but it's been brilliant. Thank you today, Don. Really, real pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. So,
a pleasure doing it.
As always, guys, we're in uncertain times at the moment, so look after yourselves, and thank you again for listening. Stay safe, and if possible, stay sane. And this is Andy N, signing out. See you all soon, guys. Take care.
Spoken, mate.